The story begins on a distant alien world that humans had only recently started visiting. It wasn't a peaceful place, but it wasn't a battlefield either. It was something in between, a planet where politics were always tense, and one wrong step could turn two civilizations into enemies. Despite that, a human diplomat was assigned there to keep the peace, and with him came his teenage daughter. She wasn't supposed to join him in dangerous areas, but she insisted. She wanted to see the world he worked so hard to protect, and he didn't want to shut her out of his life. The diplomat kept her close. Everywhere they went, she walked beside him, usually smiling, carrying her little notebook where she scribbled about every new creature she saw and every strange custom she discovered. The alien world fascinated her more than it scared her. To her, everything was like a living documentary, exotic plants that glowed at night, tall mountains shaped like broken teeth, and massive creatures in the distance that looked too big to be real. The local alien government agreed to a small peace tour for the diplomat. The goal was simple: show cooperation in front of cameras. But behind the scenes, not every faction of the alien society wanted peace. Some groups believed humans were a threat. Others just hated any foreign presence on their land. Everyone knew this, but no one expected things to fall apart the way they did. During one short visit to a restricted zone, the diplomat's daughter wandered only a few steps away, just a few. She wasn't careless. She wasn't rebellious. She simply wanted to take a closer look at a group of strange blue stones lying on the ground. They looked pretty under the sun, almost like jewels. She thought they were harmless. The next moment, she was gone. The guards searched the area immediately. The diplomat called her name over and over, his voice breaking more with each passing minute. No one saw her leave. No one heard a struggle. Nothing. It was like she vanished into thin air. Alien patrols were sent to search the outskirts. Drones scanned the sky, and human security teams swarmed the entire zone. But the area was massive, filled with narrow cracks, hidden caves, and long tunnels carved by creatures thousands of years earlier. Finding one person that was like trying to find a whisper in a storm. Hours turned into a full day. Her tracker installed in her bracelet should have helped. But somehow it was disabled. Not destroyed, disabled. That meant someone did it on purpose. The diplomat barely slept. He refused to return to the human base. Instead, he stayed near the entrance of the restricted zone, pacing in circles, replaying every moment in his mind. He blamed himself for letting her out of sight, even for a breath. He kept thinking of her notebook, the last thing she held, wondering if she dropped it somewhere in panic. When the alien government arrived with news, the diplomat's heart dropped. Their expression was cold, formal, almost rehearsed. They claimed that a hostile faction had taken the girl. They didn't give details. They didn't offer much explanation. They simply said she was gone and that the chances of finding her were low. But that wasn't the worst part. Someone showed the diplomat a symbol carved into a broken metal shard left in the sand. It was a symbol tied to an ancient creature, a dragon-like beast that lived deep in a dangerous canyon. A creature the aliens feared so badly that they refused to speak its name casually. Legend said that this creature accepted offerings, though none of the stories explained what that truly meant. It wasn't about hunger, they claimed. It was about dominance. About the old ways, the diplomat felt cold. The air felt heavier around him. He stared at the symbol and tried to breathe without shaking. He knew the stories too. Everyone did. Even humans who only recently arrived heard whispers about the dragon from the alien workers at the port. Some called it unstoppable. Some called it cursed. Some called it the only creature capable of scaring even the most fearless alien warriors. But the diplomat refused to believe the worst. He refused to imagine his daughter being sent to a creature like that. Still, why would that hostile faction leave the symbol behind. Why would they leave a clue if they wanted to hide what they had done? Something wasn't right. It all felt staged. Too convenient. Too clean. The diplomat asked the alien officials to send more troops into the canyon, but they refused. They claimed it was too dangerous. They claimed the dragon was not something anyone should approach. They claimed the girl was already lost, but the diplomat wasn't ready to give up. Not even close. Late that night, while the alien government thought he was resting, he secretly met with his own security team. They were loyal, trained, and prepared to follow him anywhere. The diplomat explained everything he suspected: the strange disappearance, the disabled tracker, the convenient symbol, the vague explanation. And most importantly, the fact that the alien government seemed strangely calm, too calm for a situation that should have shaken their entire council. His team agreed something felt wrong. They believed the girl could still be alive. And they believed that whoever took her might have had a reason, something that wasn't being shared. The diplomat kept replaying one detail in his mind. Hours after she disappeared, someone at the tech center reported a brief signal, a tiny flash from her tracker. Only for 2 seconds. Then it vanished again. It was weak, almost impossible to detect, but it was there. It meant she was alive, at least at that moment. The diplomat clung to that small spark like it was lifeline. He asked his team to gather supplies, map out the canyon, and prepare for a mission that no one else was willing to attempt. They told him the canyon was unstable, filled with old tunnels that collapsed easily, and home to creatures they didn't fully understand. But he didn't care. A father would walk into fire if he had to. While preparations continued, the diplomat walked to the edge of the canyon alone. He stared down into the shadows, wondering if somewhere in that darkness his daughter was calling for him. The canyon wind carried strange echoes, long, rumbling sounds that could have been rocks shifting, or the breath of something alive. He whispered softly, "Please hold on. I'm coming." What he didn't know was that deep inside the canyon, far beyond where the sun reached, his daughter was still alive. Weak, frightened, but alive. And somewhere not too far from her, a massive creature, the very same one everyone feared, was watching her. But not in the way the old stories described. It wasn't roaring. It wasn't attacking. It was observing. Slow, quiet, curious. And nothing about its behavior matched what anyone expected. This was the moment the entire future would shift, though none of them knew it yet. The girl wasn't just a victim. The creature wasn't just a monster. And the story everyone thought they understood was about to unravel in ways neither humans nor aliens had ever imagined. Soon, the diplomat's rescue mission would begin. But what they would find in that canyon would change everything: alliances, beliefs, even the truth about the beast itself. And the girl? She was about to become the key to a secret older than both their worlds. Deep inside the canyon, the air felt completely different from the world above. It was colder, heavier, and filled with a faint mist that smelled like old stone and wet earth. Even the light seemed to struggle to reach these depths. Only thin beams from cracks in the rock made their way down, spreading soft silver lines across the ground. The diplomat's daughter slowly opened her eyes. She didn't know how long she had been unconscious. Her body felt weak, her head hurt, and her clothes were covered in dust. She tried to sit up, but pain shot through her arms and legs, forcing her to take a deep breath before she tried again. Her surroundings were blurry at first, but when her eyes adjusted, she saw she was inside a wide chamber that looked completely natural, like a place carved by time. Not tools. She wasn't tied up. She wasn't trapped in a cage. She was simply there, as if someone or something had left her intentionally in this exact spot. Fear hit her all at once, but she didn't scream. She knew screaming wouldn't help. Instead, She looked around for any sign of life, any movement, any clue of how she ended up here. She felt the ground around her, searching for her bracelet, the tracker her father made her wear every time they traveled. It was gone, not broken, just carefully removed. Her heart sank. Someone didn't want her to be found. She stood up slowly, balancing herself with one hand against the wall. The rock was cold and rough, but real, solid. She wasn't dreaming. She wasn't imagining any of this. She remembered wandering toward the blue stones, then a shadow moving behind her. Then everything went dark. She took a shaky step forward. The air in the chamber trembled faintly, like there was a deep sound she couldn't quite hear. She closed her eyes and listened. A slow, steady breathing sound echoed from deeper inside. The canyon, not human, not like any alien she had met. It was low and rumbling. Like the earth itself was alive. She froze. Every story she had heard about the canyon rushed into her mind. The legends about an ancient creature living at the bottom, a creature so powerful that even seasoned alien warriors refused to enter its territory. They said it didn't tolerate intruders. They said no one who saw it ever returned. She tried to step backward, but her foot slipped on loose dust, and she nearly fell. A small rock tumbled loudly across the chamber floor, echoing through the darkness. The breathing sound stopped. Silence filled the entire canyon, heavy and crushing. Then, slowly, something moved. She felt it before she saw it, a shift in the air, a faint tremor under her feet. She pressed her back against the wall, her heart pounding violently, her breath shallow. Her hands trembled so much that she clenched them into fists to keep them still. From the shadows, a shape appeared. At first, she thought it was a trick of the dim light, but then it stepped forward again, its outline becoming clearer. It was massive, larger than any creature she'd ever seen, with long limbs, powerful muscles, and a tail that scraped softly against the stone. Its scales caught the tiny beams of light, glowing like dark metal. Its eyes, too bright, reflective orbs, watched her with an intense, unreadable expression. She felt so small standing in front of it. Small and fragile. The creature lowered its head slightly, studying her. It didn't roar. It didn't charge. It simply watched. The girl didn't know what to do. Running would be pointless. Fighting was impossible. So she did the only thing she could. She stood, trying to steady her breath. The creature stepped closer, and she felt warm air rush past her as it exhaled. She squeezed her eyes shut, waiting for the moment she expected from every story she had heard. But nothing happened. It didn't attack. It didn't even touch her. Instead, it tilted its head, almost like it was curious, almost like it was wondering why she was trembling. She opened her eyes slowly. The creature blinked once, and in that blink, she saw something unexpected. It wasn't rage. It wasn't hunger. It looked almost confused, maybe even concerned. She didn't know what made her speak, but her voice came out in a whisper, soft and shaky. I'm not here to hurt you. Her words echoed quietly through the chamber. The creature's ears twitched at the sound, and it took one step back, not forward. That small gesture surprised her more than anything. Why would a legendary creature feared across an entire planet take a step back from a terrified human? The girl hadn't realized how exhausted she was until now. Her legs shook, and she grabbed the wall for support. The creature watched her carefully, its eyes following every movement. She felt faint, the world spinning slightly, and her vision blurred again. As she struggled to stay upright, the creature lowered its front limbs, lowering its massive body closer to the ground. She didn't understand what it was doing till a moment later, when she felt a gust of wind as it spread one of its wings slightly, not in a threatening way, but almost like it was creating a barrier around her, a protective gesture. The girl blinked in disbelief. She never thought a creature like this could show gentleness, but here it was. Shielding her from the cold draft, blowing through the canyon dot, her strength gave out, and she slid down to the ground, sitting with her back against the wall. She pulled her knees close and closed her eyes for a moment. She tried to stay alert, but her body didn't cooperate. The creature watched her silently, then slowly curled its tail around itself and rested, staying just a few steps away. About an hour passed, maybe more. She drifted in and out of sleep, each time waking to find the creature still there, still watching her, but making no move to harm her. When she finally woke fully, she noticed something surprising. The creature had positioned itself between her and the darker part of the cave, where she had earlier heard distant growls or shifting rocks. It wasn't trapping her, Dot. It was guarding her. She didn't know why. She didn't know if it saw her as a guest, a harmless intruder, or something else entirely. But she knew one thing. If the creature wanted to hurt her, it already would have. She tried to stand again, and her legs wobbled. The creature responded instantly, rising to its feet with surprising smoothness. She felt a soft push of warm air around her, as if it was reacting to her weakness. She stretched out her hand very slowly, palm open. She didn't expect to survive this gesture, but she wanted to try. She wanted to show she wasn't a threat. The creature leaned forward. Its huge head moved closer until it was only inches from her hand. She could feel the heat radiating from its skin. It sniffed softly, a gentle rush of air that made her hair shift. She felt a strange calm wash over her. Somewhere deep inside, she sensed something the stories never mentioned. The creature wasn't wild. It wasn't mindless. It wasn't a monster Dot had understood. More than anyone above the canyon believed. She let her hand fall slowly, her body shaking from exhaustion. The creature stepped back and let her settle again. Back on the surface, the diplomat had no idea what was happening below. He didn't know his daughter was still holding on. He didn't know that the legendary creature wasn't being the terror everyone believed it to be. Didn't know that the truth about this beast was far more complicated and far more important than any story told around alien campfires. He didn't know that every assumption about this creature was wrong, and while he prepared his rescue mission with all the determination of a desperate parent, something unexpected was beginning deep in the canyon, a fragile bond, born not from fear, but from survival, a bond that would change everything. The sun had barely risen above the alien horizon when the diplomat began preparing for his journey into the canyon. He didn't wait for permission, and he didn't bother with long meetings or approval requests. He had already wasted too much time listening to officials who only cared about politics. His daughter was somewhere out there, and every minute that passed made the fear inside him grow heavier. His security team watched him quietly as he suited up. They had worked with him long enough to see the change in his expression, a mix of determination, worry, and something deeper. He wasn't just a diplomat anymore. He was a parent ready to do anything to bring back the person he loved most. One of the guards approached him with a handheld scanner. "Sir," he said gently, "there's no new signal from her tracker. But the canyon's magnetic field is unstable. It might be blocking everything." The diplomat nodded, but he wasn't listening to excuses. He believed she was alive, even if the evidence was thin. He didn't care how dangerous the canyon was supposed to be. Legends were just stories until you tested them yourself. He tightened the straps of his gear and checked the communication device strapped to his shoulder. "We leave in 10 minutes, he said firmly. While preparations were happening above ground, deep inside the canyon, the girl slowly sat up again. Her body was still weak, but she could sit without falling. She rubbed her eyes and looked around, half hoping everything she saw earlier was just a dream. But the huge creature was still there, lying quietly a few feet away. Its eyes were open, glowing softly in the dim light. It watched her with the same calm curiosity she had seen before. Its presence filled the whole chamber, like a living mountain of scales and muscle. Yet she didn't feel the fear she expected. She felt something else, something strange, almost like a sense of safety. She didn't know what made her speak, but her voice came out as a whisper. "Why? Why didn't you hurt me?" Of course, the creature didn't answer, but it lifted its head slightly, as if responding to her tone. It blinked once, slowly, and she noticed something she hadn't before. The area behind the creature's left shoulder was scarred, faint but visible. Old wounds. Marks from battles long forgotten. Maybe it wasn't the monster the stories described. Maybe the stories were only half true. The girl stood carefully, keeping one hand against the wall for balance. The creature watched every movement, its tail curling slightly. She walked a few steps toward the entrance of the chamber, then hesitated. The air grew colder the further she moved, and strange sounds echoed faintly through the tunnel's sharp screeches, low rumbling growls, scratching noises. She stepped back quickly. The creature made a low sound, not aggressive, not warning, more like reassurance. The kind of sound an old, tired animal might make to show it meant no harm. She sat on a rock, pulling her knees close to warm herself. Hunger slowly crept in. She hadn't eaten since the day before, and her stomach twisted painfully. She wondered if the creature noticed. It lowered its head, sniffed the ground, and pushed a small cluster of glowing berries toward her with the tip of its snout. She stared at the berries, confused. Were they safe? She didn't know. But the creature nudged them again gently, waiting. She picked one up, rolling it between her fingers. The scent was sweet. She took a tiny bite and waited. It tasted like fruit, cool, refreshing, almost like something she had eaten on Earth. She took another bite. Her body relaxed slightly, grateful for the nourishment. The creature settled down across from her, folding its wings against its sides. They stayed like that for a while, sharing the quiet space. She didn't know what the creature wanted from her. Maybe nothing. Maybe it was simply curious. Back on the surface, the diplomat and his team reached the edge of the canyon. The drop was deep, almost endless. A cold wind blew upward, carrying the faint smell of dust and ancient stone. The diplomat stared down into the shadowy depths, imagining his daughter somewhere below. Trying to stay strong, the team anchored ropes along the cliffside and began their descent. Each step tested the rope. Each shift of weight created small showers of loose stones. The diplomat wasn't a trained climber, but he didn't hesitate. His hands moved fast, gripping the rope tightly, his breath steady. Halfway down, the wind changed direction, carrying a distant sound, a low, echoing rumble. The guards exchanged glances. "Is that the creature?" One of them whispered. No one answered. The diplomat swallowed hard. The stories came back to him, the tales of the dragon's roar shaking entire mountains. But the sound they heard wasn't loud. It wasn't fierce. It was deep, almost tired. Like a sigh. They touched the canyon floor after 2 long hours. Their boots sank slightly into the dust. Strange glowing plants grew along the walls, lighting the path with pale blue light. The diplomat held a small scanner, sweeping it slowly across the ground. No signal. But he didn't give up. He found a small imprint in the dust, too small for an alien's foot, too big for a wild animal. His breath caught. "She came this way," he whispered to himself. Meanwhile, inside the chamber, the girl gathered enough courage to speak again. "You're not what they say," she said quietly. The creature shifted its head and closed its eyes halfway, like it understood her tone, even if it didn't understand the words. She stood and took a slow step toward the tunnel leading outward. The creature rose to its feet immediately. Its wings opened slightly, not fully, just enough to show it was paying attention. She walked a few more steps, her hand brushing against the rough wall. The creature followed her, its heavy steps echoing softly. It wasn't blocking her path. It was staying close. The deeper they moved into the tunnel, the colder the air became. Strange noises echoed around them. Suddenly, she heard a sharp hiss from somewhere ahead. She stopped instantly. The creature tensed, lowering its body. A moment later, something moved in the darkness fast, thin shapes skittering across the rocks. The creature stepped in front of her, wings spreading wide. A low growl vibrated through the tunnel. The smaller creatures froze, hissed again, and then scattered back into the shadows. The girl exhaled shakily. The world had just shown her a truth she didn't expect. This creature wasn't the danger. The canyon was full of dangers. And the creature was the only thing standing between her and them. Hours passed, and somewhere above them, the diplomat and his team continued deeper into the canyon. They remained cautious, weapons ready, eyes scanning every corner. They didn't know the girl had already found protection in the same creature they feared. The diplomat paused when he noticed a small glowing berry crushed on the ground. He picked it up and stared at it. His daughter used to collect anything colorful, anything interesting. This was a sign. She's alive, he whispered with trembling relief. Inside the canyon, the girl leaned against the creature's side, not because she wasn't afraid anymore, but because she was exhausted. The warmth from its scales helped her stay awake. She looked up at the creature's face, studying the way its eyes softened whenever it looked at her. Maybe it felt lonely. Maybe it had been misunderstood for years. Maybe no one had ever tried to understand it. She closed her eyes, whispering softly, "I hope my father finds me soon." The creature lowered its head beside her, its breath warm and steady. Above them, the diplomat continued searching, unaware that he was getting closer with every step. And far below, in the quiet chamber lit by glowing stones, a bond had formed, something fragile, unexpected, and powerful enough to change the fate of both species. The deeper the diplomat moved into the canyon, the more he realized why the aliens feared this place so much. The walls weren't simple stone. They were carved with long, diagonal marks, like something large had brushed against them again and again over many years. Strange glowing plants twisted out of cracks, lighting the path just enough to see a few feet ahead. Every few minutes, a distant rumble echoed from somewhere far below, making dust fall from the ceiling. His team walked behind him in silence. They were trained professionals who had been through dangerous missions before, but this canyon felt different. The air itself felt alive, as if it was watching them, waiting. The diplomat stopped to rest for a moment, placing one hand on the wall. He closed his eyes, taking a slow breath. He didn't want his team to see how tired he really was. His body ached from climbing, his lungs burned from the thin air, and his heart felt like it was carrying a mountain of fear. But none of it mattered. His daughter was somewhere down here, and he would find her even if it meant walking until his legs gave out. One of the guards checked a small scanner. "Sir," he said quietly, "we're picking up heat signatures deeper in. Not human. Bigger. Many of them." The diplomat nodded. "We keep going." Meanwhile, far below them, the girl slowly opened her eyes again. She had drifted in and out of sleep while leaning against the creature's warm side. It wasn't comfortable. Its scales were firm and rough, but she didn't care. The warmth kept her alive in the cold canyon air. When she sat up, the creature lifted its head instantly. Its eyes glowed softly in the dim light. It didn't rise to its feet, but it watched her carefully, as if checking if she was all right. "I'm okay," she whispered. Her voice was tired, but steady. The creature let out a low rumble, not threatening at all. It sounded almost like a gentle response. She didn't know why, but every time it made that sound, she felt less afraid. She stood slowly and stretched her legs. They were still sore, but she could walk better now. The creature rose at the same time, its massive body unfolding like a shadow lifting off the ground. It took a step toward her, then another, always keeping itself between her and the darker tunnel ahead. She reached out a hand. Not to touch it, she wasn't that brave, but just to let it know she wasn't trying to run. The creature watched her fingers move and tilted its head slightly, curious. "I need to find a way out," she murmured. Her voice cracked when she said it. She wanted to go home. She wanted to see daylight again. She wanted her father to know she was alive. The creature blinked slowly. Then it turned toward a different tunnel, a narrow passage she hadn't noticed before. It stepped forward and looked back at her, waiting. "You want me to follow you?" she asked. The creature nodded. She didn't understand how such a powerful being could communicate so clearly without any words. She didn't know if it understood what she said or just reacted to her tone, but one thing was clear. It wanted her to come with it. Her legs were weak, her stomach empty, and her hands cold, but she followed. The creature kept a slow pace so she wouldn't fall behind. Every time her steps wobbled, it glanced back to make sure she was still okay. The tunnel grew narrower, the ceiling lower. Strange roots hung from above, brushing against her shoulders as she walked. She heard distant hisses and sharp scratching sounds behind the walls. But the creature moved confidently, unbothered by the noises. After walking for what felt like an hour, the tunnel widened into a new chamber. This one was different. The stone glowed faintly on its own, lighting everything with a soft green hue. Water dripped from the walls into small pools that shimmered like liquid glass. The girl gasped softly. She had never seen anything like it. The creature stopped near one of the pools and dipped its head to drink. When it finished, it nudged the edge of the pool gently, looking at her. "You want me to drink?" she asked. It nodded again. She knelt and cupped some water in her hands. It was cold, so cold it almost numbed her fingers, but it tasted clean. She drank slowly, feeling the water revive her body, one swallow at a time. She didn't know how long she had gone without drinking, but her whole body felt lighter now. "Thank you," she whispered. The creature responded with a soft rumble. Far above them, the Diplomat's team stopped near a fork in the canyon path. One of the guards knelt and touched something on the ground. "Sir," he said, "look at this." The Diplomat hurried over. It was a footprint, small, human, covered in dust but still visible. His throat tightened. He crouched beside it, gently brushing the edge of the print with trembling fingers. "This is hers," he said softly. He stood quickly, adrenaline surging through him. "She came this way. We move." They followed the path deeper into the canyon, guided by small signs, a broken berry, a faint smear of dust on the wall, a loose piece of fabric caught on a rock. Each sign made the Diplomat's hope grow stronger. Inside the glowing chamber, the girl sat on a rock, resting. She watched the creature quietly. For the first time, she thought about what this creature's life might have been like before she arrived. Maybe it had lived down here alone for years. Maybe it was hunted or feared by the alien society above. Maybe it didn't choose loneliness. It was forced into it. She realized something else, too. Everyone believed this creature was dangerous. But if it truly wanted to harm her, it had many chances already. Instead, it protected her, guided her, even shared the little food and water it had. "What happened to you?" she whispered. The creature slowly lowered its head, placing its snout gently on the ground. It looked tired. Not physically, emotionally, if a creature like this could feel emotions. The old scars on its body told a story she didn't know how to interpret. She took a careful step toward it. Her hand shook as she raised it, stopping inches from its skin. The creature didn't move. It didn't growl. It simply waited. She touched it, only for a second. Its scales were warm and rough, like touching a stone that had been sitting in sunlight. The creature blinked, slow and relaxed. The moment was small, but it changed everything. She felt something shift inside her. Not fear, not confusion. Trust. And the creature seemed to feel it too. Suddenly, the ground shook slightly. Not enough to knock her down, but enough to make the creature snap its head toward the tunnel. It growled a deep sound, loud enough to vibrate the stones. The girl stood quickly, heart pounding. "What is it?" she whispered. The creature stepped in front of her, wings tightening against its sides. The growl grew louder. Something was coming. Footsteps echoed from the tunnel. Slow at first, then faster. The sound didn't match the skittering creatures from earlier. These steps were heavier, controlled, human. The girl gasped. She knew that rhythm. She knew that weight. She had walked beside it her whole life. "Dad?" She shouted. The creature froze, its eyes widening slightly. Voices echoed through the tunnel. Flashlights appeared, cutting through the dim green glow. The girl took a step forward, tears flooding her eyes. "Dad!" "I'm here." The diplomat rushed into the chamber the moment he heard her voice. He didn't see anything at first, just the glowing walls, the pools, and the small figure standing near the center. Then he saw her. His daughter Dusty. Weak, trembling, but alive. He dropped everything and ran to her. She stumbled into his arms, crying softly as he held her close. His hands shook as he touched her face, checking she was real. He whispered her name again and again, voice breaking with relief. But then the ground rumbled. Again, the creature stepped out of the shadows. The guards raised their weapons instantly. The diplomat held his daughter tightly, eyes widening as he finally came face to face with the legendary beast everyone feared. But the girl clung to his arm and shook her head urgently. "No, don't hurt it. Please don't." The guards looked confused. The diplomat didn't understand at first. Why wasn't she running from it? Why didn't she look terrified? The creature stood still, not threatening, not attacking. Its eyes were calm, almost gentle. A moment later, the diplomat realized something impossible. This creature had been protecting her, and the canyon wasn't what he thought it was. The truth was bigger, stranger, and more important than any of them knew, and their next decisions would decide the future for humans, for aliens, and for the creature standing quietly in the glowing chamber. The diplomat held his daughter close, her small body trembling against his chest. He could feel her heart racing, hear her soft breaths, and taste the lingering dust from the canyon air. Relief washed over him, but he knew it wasn't over yet. The canyon was far from safe, and the journey back to the surface would be just as dangerous as the one they had made down here. The creature stood quietly, a silent guardian, watching every movement with alert eyes. The girl, still holding tightly to her father's arm, glanced up at it. "We can't hurt it," she whispered, her voice trembling. "It helped me. It kept me safe." The diplomat looked at the massive being, feeling something stir inside him that he didn't expect. Stories told of dragons in this canyon being unstoppable and violent, but he didn't see a monster before him. He saw a living creature, majestic, strong, and aware. One that had chosen to protect his daughter when no one else could. He slowly lowered his hands and took a cautious step back, letting the creature see that he meant no harm. The creature rumbled softly, a deep vibration that filled the chamber. It wasn't a roar, not even close. It was more like a statement, an acknowledgement of trust. The girl clutched her father's sleeve. "It's okay. I think it wants us to follow it," she said, pointing toward the narrow tunnel that led deeper into the canyon. "I think it knows a safe way out." The diplomat hesitated. He wanted to believe her, but the canyon had been full of surprises, and every story he had ever heard about this place warned him not to trust anything. Still, he saw her faith in the creature, her unwavering belief that it was not a threat, and something inside him shifted. "All right," he said slowly. "We follow it. But everyone stays alert. We move carefully." The guards nodded, some with weapons at the ready, others scanning the shadows. The teen began to move, stepping lightly over the uneven ground while the girl walked beside her protector. Every step she took, the creature kept close, occasionally brushing its massive wing against her side as if to steady her dot as they moved. The canyon opened into a larger chamber. The walls glowed faintly with a soft green luminescence, reflecting off small pools of water scattered along the floor. The light made the cavern look like it belonged in a dream, serene yet mysterious. The girl paused for a moment, her hand resting gently on the creature's scaled side. "Thank you," she whispered, almost to herself. The creature turned its head toward her, eyes softening in a way that almost felt like it understood gratitude. The diplomat followed closely, watching every movement. He could feel the tension in the air, not just from the dangers of the canyon, but from the fear that had followed them this entire journey. Every rumble, every echo, could hide threats. Yet he noticed something extraordinary. The canyon seemed to recognize the creature. Small shadows darted away, and distant noises stopped, as if the canyon itself respected the presence of the guardian. Suddenly, the cavern floor shook slightly. The diplomat instinctively grabbed his daughter's arm, and the guards tensed. The girl looked at the creature. It lowered its head slightly, wings flexing, body coiled and ready to act. The sound came again, a soft scraping, like something enormous moving in the distance. The girl swallowed hard, her fingers clutching her father's sleeve. The creature stepped forward, placing itself between the sound and the girl. It rumbled low, a vibration that seemed to say, "Do not fear. I will protect you." The diplomat watched, speechless. He had trained for countless dangerous missions, faced unpredictable terrain and hostile alien forces, but he had never encountered anything like this. This creature wasn't just powerful, it was intelligent. It understood them. It understood his daughter. And more than that, it had chosen to help her. They moved deeper into the chamber, following the creature's lead. Small streams of water flowed along the walls, and the air smelled fresher here, less heavy than the tunnels above. The girl's steps became steadier. She felt safer, not because the creature could attack anything that threatened them, but because it had shown her that it cared, in its own way. The diplomat finally spoke. "Do you understand us?" he asked, his voice quiet, almost reverent. "Do you know who we are?" The creature didn't respond with words. It tilted its head slightly and let out a low rumble, as if acknowledging the question. The diplomat realized that understanding didn't need words. Its actions had already said everything. Protection, guidance, and a strange kind of respect ours seemed to pass as they navigated the twisting passages of the canyon. The girl stayed close to the creature, her small hand brushing against its scales whenever she stumbled. Each time she did, it flexed slightly, keeping her steady. It was more than just help. It was careful attention. Eventually, the canyon began to slope upward, and the light from the surface started filtering down through cracks above. The girl squinted, feeling hope for the first time in what felt like an eternity. She turned to look at the creature. Its eyes reflected the faint sunlight, glowing softly, and she felt a pang of sadness. She didn't know if she would ever see it again. "Will you come with us?" she asked softly. The creature didn't answer, but it didn't step back either. It lowered its head and gave a gentle rumble. She took that as its way of saying goodbye. The diplomat noticed her pause and looked at the creature as well. "It's all right," he said quietly, understanding the moment, even if the guards didn't. "It's done more for us than anyone else could. Let's honor that and move carefully." They continued upward, the air getting warmer and the sounds of the alien world above growing louder. Small birds or creatures that resembled birds chirped in the distance. The diplomat's heart swelled with relief. They were almost at the surface. His daughter's strength returned slowly, fueled by hope and the knowledge that she wasn't alone. Finally, they reached the canyon's exit. Sunlight spilled into the narrow passage, illuminating the diplomat's face and his daughter's. She ran a few steps forward, laughing softly, the sound echoing in the canyon. She turned back to look at the creature one last time. It stood at the edge of the shadows, wings partially unfurled, watching them leave. The diplomat caught her as she ran into his arms again. Tears filled his eyes. "You're safe," he whispered, holding her tightly. "You're safe now." The guards lowered their weapons, a mix of relief and awe on their faces. None of them could believe what they had witnessed. The creature they had been taught to fear had guided them, protected the girl, and ensured their survival. For a few moments there was silence. Only the sound of the canyon wind and the soft movement of the glowing plants broke the stillness. The girl hugged her father, glancing back toward the shadow where the creature had waited. She knew that it had been more than a guardian. It had been a friend. The diplomat finally spoke to his team. "We document everything. No one is to harm it. No one," he repeated firmly. "This creature isn't an enemy. It saved my daughter. It deserves respect." The team nodded, still shaken but understanding. This was more than a rescue mission. It was a lesson. Stories could be wrong. Legends could lie. And fear, unchecked, could blind people to the truth. The girl looked up at her father. "Will they believe us?" she asked softly. "They will have to," he replied. "We have proof. And even if some don't, it doesn't matter. We know the truth, and that's what counts." They began the journey back to the human base. Every step was lighter now, filled with relief and gratitude. The canyon no longer seemed threatening. The dangers that had felt overwhelming before now seemed smaller, almost insignificant, compared to what they had just experienced. The girl held her father's hand tightly as they walked. "Do you think it will be okay?" she asked, thinking of the creature left behind. He paused, considering the question. "It's strong," he said finally, "and it knows this place better than anyone. It will be fine. And who knows? Maybe one day it will trust humans enough to come closer again." She smiled softly, comforted by his words. Together, they left the shadow of the canyon behind them, carrying with them a story of courage, trust, and an extraordinary bond between human and creature. And in the quiet depths of the canyon, the guardian watched them go, a silent sentinel of a world that was now a little safer because of the choices it had made. The journey back to the base was quiet at first. The girl walked beside her father, holding his hand tightly, while the guards followed close behind, still processing what they had just witnessed. The canyon's shadows receded as the sun rose higher, and with each step, the girl felt lighter, not just from escaping the darkness, but because she had survived something unimaginable. Her father glanced at her from time to time, seeing the mix of exhaustion and awe in her eyes. "You did well," he said softly, squeezing her hand. "You stayed strong when it mattered most." She looked up at him, unsure if she should smile or cry. "I didn't do it alone," she said. "The creature, it saved me." Her father nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. The canyon's legendary guardian had chosen to protect her, had guided her through impossible paths, and had stood between her and unseen dangers. Without it, she might not have made it this far. He realized that this story wasn't just about survival. It was about trust, courage, and the unexpected bonds that could form between species that humans barely understood. The guards were silent, but their expressions had changed. Where there had been fear, there was now respect. Where there had been tension, there was a sense of wonder. They had come expecting danger, expecting a legendary creature to be a threat. Instead, they had found something almost magical and intelligent, protective being that had chosen the right side dot. As they climbed out of the canyon, the girl paused and looked back one last time. The shadows where the creature had waited stretched long in the morning light. She whispered softly, "Thank you," though she knew it couldn't hear her from so far away. Still, she felt that her words mattered. Somehow, somewhere, she believed it understood. Back at the human base, the news of their safe return spread quickly. The diplomat led his daughter to a private room where she could rest and recover. Her hands were still dusty, and her hair was tangled, but she was alive. That was all that mattered. Medical staff checked her over, giving her water and food, and she finally allowed herself to relax fully for the first time since the disappearance. Her father sat beside her, holding her hand. "You've been through a lot," he said quietly. "But you're safe now. We're going to make sure nothing like this happens again." She smiled weakly, exhaustion making her eyelids heavy. I think the creature deserves more than fear. Everyone talks about it as if it's dangerous. But it isn't. It just protects what it cares about." He nodded, understanding. "I know, and will make sure others know that too. You've seen the truth. And truth matters more than legend." That evening, the diplomat called a meeting with the human team and representatives from the alien government. He knew he had to explain everything, not only to prove that his daughter was safe, but also to prevent further misunderstandings. He described every moment of the journey, the canyon's dangers, the signs they had followed, and most importantly, the creature that had saved his daughter. Some officials were skeptical. Others were shocked. But the diplomat's tone was firm, calm, and full of conviction. "We cannot continue to fear what we do not understand," he said. "Legends are not always true. Some creatures are not enemies. Some creatures are guardians. This one chose to protect my daughter. It deserves respect, not attack." The room was silent for a long moment. Then, one of the alien representatives spoke. "You are saying it acted? Intentionally?" "Yes," the diplomat replied. "It understood, in its way, that she was in danger. And it chose to help. We must honor that choice. If we fail to do so, we risk losing something extraordinary forever." His words carried weight. Slowly, others nodded. The fear that had dominated their thinking began to shift, replaced with curiosity, and in some cases, admiration. Meanwhile, the girl rested in her room, thinking about everything that had happened. She replayed every moment in her mind, the soft rumble of the creature's breath, the way it had nudged her with its snout, the glowing pools of water, the tunnels illuminated by strange plants. She realized something she hadn't considered before. This experience had changed her. She had faced fear, uncertainty, and the unknown. And she had survived, not because she was fearless, but because she trusted, adapted, and accepted help when it came. Her father watched her quietly, noticing the subtle shift in her demeanor. She seemed calmer, wiser, more thoughtful. "You've grown," he said softly. "This experience, it's changed you." She nodded, smiling faintly. "I think I understand now. Fear isn't always about danger. Sometimes it's about not knowing. And sometimes courage is about trusting something bigger than yourself." Days passed. The girl recovered fully, though she never forgot the journey into the canyon. She spoke with scientists and explorers, sharing what she had seen and learned. She described the creature, its behavior, and the bond they had formed. Her words painted a picture far different from the fearful legends. The diplomat continued his work, but now with a new perspective. Politics and diplomacy were still important, but he had seen firsthand how misunderstanding and fear could shape decisions, sometimes with devastating consequences. He began advocating for cautious exploration and mutual respect between humans and alien life forms, emphasizing the importance of understanding before judgment. One morning, weeks later, the girl returned to the canyon, not alone, but with a small team of researchers and the diplomat. They didn't bring weapons or cages. They brought supplies, cameras, and careful observation tools. Their goal was simple: learn, not capture. Respect, not conquer. When they reached the edge of the canyon where she had first encountered the creature, she paused. Memories of fear, confusion, and hope all came rushing back. She whispered softly, "I hope you're still here." A moment later, the shadows shifted. The creature emerged, larger than ever in the light of day, yet calm and poised. Its eyes reflected recognition, as if it remembered every detail of their first meeting. The girl stepped forward slowly, holding out her hand, not to touch, but to show trust. The creature rumbled softly, a sound almost like a greeting. It lowered its massive head slightly, acknowledging her presence. She smiled, feeling the bond still alive after all these weeks. The team observed quietly, careful not to disturb it. Cameras captured the interaction, notes were taken, and every member of the group felt the same awe she had felt in the beginning. This creature was more than a legend. It was a bridge between two worlds, a symbol of understanding, patience, and the power of trust. Her father watched from a distance, pride swelling in his chest. His daughter had not only survived, but she had also learned something profound. The universe was full of unknowns, but fear and courage were not opposites. They could coexist, guiding decisions and shaping outcomes. As the sun began to set over the canyon, the girl stood beside the creature, feeling the warmth of its body, the gentle rise and fall of its breathing. She didn't know what the future would hold. She didn't know if humans and aliens would ever fully understand each other. But she knew one thing with certainty. She had witnessed a truth greater than fear, greater than legend, and greater than any story she had ever heard. The diplomat joined her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "It will be all right," he said quietly. "You've shown everyone what it means to trust. You've shown them that courage isn't just about strength, it's about understanding." She smiled, looking out over the canyon. The shadows stretched long, the glowing plants reflected the soft light, and the creature stood quietly beside her. For the first time, the canyon didn't feel dangerous. It felt alive, full of possibilities, and full of lessons for those willing to see them. In the days that followed, the story of their journey spread throughout the human base and the alien council. Legends were rewritten, not as stories of terror, but as stories of courage, trust, and unexpected alliances. The girl became a symbol of hope, demonstrating that even in a world filled with fear and misunderstanding, it was possible to find connection and safety in the most unlikely places. And deep in the canyon, the creature returned to its quiet life, but now with a new understanding. It had seen humans not as threats, but as beings capable of trust and respect. It had protected one, and in doing so, had shown the universe a lesson no one could have predicted, that courage and compassion could create bonds stronger than fear. The girl often thought of it, remembering the moments when its warm presence had steadied her trembling hands, when its soft rumble had calmed her racing heart, and when it had guided her safely through the darkness. She knew that somewhere in that canyon, the creature waited, watching, and quietly guarding not just the land, but the lessons of trust it had shared. And she knew that she would never forget the experience for the rest of her life.